You can do it. There you go.
There we go.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining for this first episode of the year of Learn with Google. This is a monthly webinar that we do to share some of the latest things from the Google for Education team. And so thanks for joining us today. This first one for February, we've called That's the Way You Do It, Building a Culture of Innovation in Your School. And we're going to talk about some of the innovative ideas that you might like to use within your school, and we have a special guest speaker who has not appeared yet, but hopefully he will shortly. Before we do, let's just kick off by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands upon which we meet, wherever it is for you right now. So we'd like to acknowledge those traditional owners whose cultures and customs have nurtured and continue to nurture this land. And we honour the presence of the ancestors who reside in the imagination of this land. And now let's flip eastward over to Steve.
Eastwood. Thanks, mate. Te mauri ora ina maunga whakahi and wai tuku kiri ki te tūpuna tēnā koe tēnā koutou katoa. And as Chris began there with his acknowledgement of the traditional custodians, I'd also like to acknowledge and respect Ngāi Māori as the tangata whenua of Aotearoa, and know that we are committed to upholding the partnership of Te Tiriti, because it is indeed a partnership, no matter what they say on the news.
Lovely. Thanks, Steve. All right. Again, I've actually updated this slide because I realised some of our team had actually changed their titles. So that is the latest straight from the database. So that's everyone's title and what they do here on the education team at Google. Just in case you ever need to reach out to us, that is who we are. All right. So today we've got a little agenda for today. We're going to talk a little bit about a culture of innovation and some of the things we do here at Google to try and build a culture of innovation within Google itself. And then I've asked Mr. Brett Salakis. Hi, Brett. You can wave at us. Brett does a lot of really cool work. Brett is an ex-teacher who's now working in the innovation space with a lot of schools with HP. And so I've asked Brett to come along and talk about the stuff that he's seen happening, innovative things happening in schools as well. We'll look at some of the latest updates from AI, particularly around the new Gemini stuff that we just announced. And then, of course, we do our usual unpacking of a few new features. What's new with Google for Education? I've got to say there were so many to pick from right now because we haven't done this since November, and there's been a ton of changes. So I've tried to pick out the best 7 or 8 things that I think are most relevant to teachers, but there has been a lot of new stuff come through. All right. Now, Steve, feel free to jump in, and Darren, at any time and sort of add your thoughts to this. I'm going to try and get through this in about 10 minutes or so, just talking about some of the cultural things at Google, but jump in if you need to.
Cool.
So, you know, we have this comes from a slide deck that we've used a number of times here at Google as we talk to schools, and it's around this idea that when you're creating impact within any organization, there's a number of pillars obviously that play into that. You know, you've got to have technology in place and a particular learning approach, and community engagement, funding and stability, sustainability, professional development, vision, and so on. Vision's kind of the overarching one. But let's just talk about culture for a second, because if you can create the right culture within any organization, it obviously has an impact on all the other stuff as well. But it's not just about culture, it's not just about technology, it's an interplay of a whole bunch of different things. There are 4 things I want to talk about that happen at Google in terms of developing culture here at Google. You've probably heard things about Google, maybe you've watched The Internship, maybe you've read some things, I don't know. Google's a pretty interesting company, and I think we do some really interesting things. And the culture inside Google, I think we've built a culture that helps a lot of that cool stuff happen. And the 4 things is curiosity, agency, risk-taking, and collaboration. And Brett, as I looked at your slides, I saw a lot of overlap between what you're going to talk about and what I'm going to talk about. So that works well. Did not plan that. So curiosity, first of all. So the pillar of curiosity is all about creating an environment where people are allowed to wonder and experiment and question and play. And we do that a lot at Google. And some of the ways we do that, so for example, every Friday, it used to be Friday, we've kind of moved it to Thursdays since the COVID experience, because we're still in part, a lot of people are not coming in every single day because they can work from anywhere, which I guess is another part of the culture. So we've kind of moved it to Thursday. But every Thursday, there's a get-together within the company, and people can come together, they socialise, they can ask questions, they can share ideas. TGIF, or thank goodness it's Friday, originally started out as a cultural thing within Google where anybody could ask questions of senior management, and nothing was really off the table. So it gave this idea of treating people like they were owners, not just employees. It promoted a lot of transparency and trust because everything got talked about out in the open. It removed a lot of the hierarchy, and that idea of sharing ideas across the organisation. So that was a big part of sort of the cultural piece. There's also a thing inside Google called Grow. And Steve, you probably know more about this than me, but do you want to comment on this one?
Yeah, so Grow is an internal, I guess you call it a professional development site where you can go on and look at courses that are available to you. You can sign up to them. You get time during the day, which I know is as one of those things as a teacher you never ever have time to do your own professional development and learning. The ability to jump into on-demand courses, sign up to them, spend a little bit of time learning. Things like, there's people in the Australian team who've done Australian Sign Language as a Grow course, or we've done things around Treaty of Waitangi and Tikanga in New Zealand. So the ability for you to go and do a course that interests you, that either helps the job or may not. It may just develop you as a person. So it is that whole internal way of learning. It says there's some employee-generated resources. So you can do what's called a G2G, a Googler to Googler, where you go, hey, I love using this, Google Earth, for instance. Who wants to do a course around it, how to build stuff on there? And you can offer an internal Googler to Googler course. And we also have things called lunch and learns, where someone go, hey, I'm doing a lunch and learn about this today. Bring your lunch, sit in, we'll do a little workshop on it and learn as you go. So the emphasis is on learning and allowing you to learn as you want.
And it doesn't have to be just learning about technology stuff either. I know we've got like a ukulele club where people get together and like teach each other ukulele, things like that. Like it's kind of neat. The other thing about the curiosity piece is just the physical space. If you've ever visited a Google office, and if you haven't, I would invite you to get to a Google office at some point. Just come and visit. I promise I'll take you on a tour if you'd like to come and visit. But we've got an environment that does think it really encourages playfulness. If you walk around the building here, you'll see like there's tables of Lego and jigsaw puzzles, and like there's all sorts of parts of the environment that just inspires people to sort of think outside the box and just think a bit differently about things and just be playful. So that's a big part of the curiosity piece. Second thing is what we call agency. And agency is where you empower people to take initiative for things. So, to own the problem, to own the work, to take initiative for solving things, and create things in the process. Some of the ways we do this at Google, you've probably heard of the famous 20% projects. There's a culture inside Google where if you're on the engineering teams particularly, you are allowed to spend 20% of your time working on something that's not related to your actual job, but could be of some interest to you or potential use down the track.
Does anyone know what the most famous 20% project was? Gmail. So Gmail was a 20% project.
Yeah, there was a guy at Google a number of years ago now who thought that email sucked, and so he thought he could do better. So he basically designed his own version of email, and that became Gmail. Yeah. But there's a lot of the products that you use on a daily basis probably started as somebody's 20% time project. And they just got developed, and eventually they took it to their manager and went, look what I've built. And they went, that's great, let's do something with it. So it's a great way to build new things without necessarily having to go through all the strictures and structures of the corporate world and approvals and all that. People can really pursue things that interest them. Now, I'll sort of just go back to that one. I know a lot of schools do things like 20% projects or 20 time or Genius Hour or whatever you want to call it, where they kind of allow kids to work on things that interest them. So same kind of idea. We do a thing called Google Geist. Steve, you got any insights on this one?
Yeah, so it's an employee feedback program, basically, where you give your honest opinion on something. Were you able to work to your full capacity this week? Did you have the ability to choose your own direction. So it's instant feedback once a week now. It used to be once a quarter, but it is honest feedback back to the company about how things are going.
Yeah, and we do prioritize here at Google a lot of stuff around feedback. I just filled out a feedback form earlier today on one of our tools and products that I think could be improved, and it's okay to say that. You don't feel like you can't speak up. So that's an important part of it. The third thing is risk taking, and I think we've been pretty good at this at Google about building products that take big risks and go for big goals. And part of the culture there is about dreaming big, sort of reaching for the stars, trying experiments, trying new things, and not worrying about it if they don't work. Like, you learn what you can from it and you move on. So culturally, we talk a lot internally about this idea of psychological safety. You have probably heard that term. It's this belief that you won't be punished or humiliated by speaking up for ideas, questions, concerns, or mistakes. I know when I was a teacher in a school, sometimes it wasn't so easy to speak up about stuff because you kind of knew what the consequences would be. We've built a culture here at Google where we really try not for that to be the case. Unsafe
Chris,
teams.
I'll just jump into that one.
Please do.
Another big part of it is something called the no blame post-mortem. So if something goes wrong, it's actually going through what went wrong, not apportioning any blame, but looking at it as a process of what went wrong, how can we learn from that mistake, and how can we redo it again better next time. So the no blame post-mortem is a really great way of looking back at something without pointing a finger.
Yeah. So, and you can see some quotes on the screen there about, how people feel when they're in unsafe teams. They don't feel like they're in a safe zone, so they don't speak up, so ideas don't bubble to the top. The other side of that is, of course, safe teams. If you feel supported, if you feel you're working in a place where it's okay to be wrong occasionally, where no question is a dumb question, then you're much more likely to speak up. You're much more likely to sort of take those dumb ideas, which actually can be quite brilliant ideas a lot of the time, and have them surface to the top. So that sort of three-step thing, if I can give you 3 pieces of advice on the psychological safety thing and how you might implement that in a school situation, think about work as not a series of execution problems, but a series of learning problems. Like, work is about how do I learn more as I go along, not how do I execute more, right? How do you model curiosity and ask more questions? That's a huge one for schools. If every teacher was just more open to the idea of modeling that curiosity, and I know many of you already do, but asking more questions. When a student says, how do I do something? You go, I don't know, let's figure it out together. So, and just modeling that curiosity and that question-taking approach. And look, step 3 is like admitting your own fallibility, just admitting that you don't know everything and that it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to not know. So, I think if you can do those sorts of things, it really sets a tone for psychological safety, both here at Google and hopefully in your school. Some of the things we do to try and encourage that here is we have a system internally called G-Thanks. And again, Steve, I'm going to call on you. You want to unpack this one a bit?
Yeah, so G-Thanks is, I talk about this with our team. I remember when I was back at school, and every Friday the principal would give out a bottle of wine. And it's kind of like player of the day at football when you're coaching a 5-year-olds team. You get to about week 3 of term 2, and you're like, oh, who do we have to give the bottle of wine to this week? We'll give it to Darren. He did really great today at teaching his class. And everyone's like, that's a hollow giveaway, right? So G-Thanks is very, very different in that if someone does something great, you can nominate them for a couple of different things. Kudos is just a write-up saying, look, Chris, you did fantastic work on creating this and this and this. And the nice thing about this is it gets sent to Chris's manager and Chris's manager's manager, and I can nominate anybody to get recognition of something that Chris did. It's really nice because it is from someone direct to someone else. The other one there on the right-hand side is a peer bonus, so it's a cash bonus. Again, if someone does something out of their job role to help someone solve a problem that they really needed to but didn't have to, you can give them a bonus. So it's a really nice, authentic way of thanking someone. Now, there's some really cool rules in that if I gave Darren a peer bonus, he can't give me one back the same week. So we can't go, hey, we're going to the pub on Friday. I'll peer bonus you. You peer bonus me back. Happy days. We're all good. So you can't do that.
We haven't tested the system yet, though, Steve. We haven't tested that yet.
We haven't, but we can. So it's a really nice, authentic way of giving thanks, and it's a really public way of giving thanks as well, because everybody who's copied into it gets the email saying how great Darren was at doing that thing.
Yeah, it's like a yay of the day.
Yeah.
Another thing is just in terms of risk taking. We have a saying in Google: always focus on the user. Always try and build what people need, what people want. And we don't always get that right, by the way, but we always try to focus on the user. The other thing, Google, you hear a lot about is thinking 10x. And I got a slide here. It's easy to think when you try to make something better. How do I make it like a little bit better? How do I make it 10% better? But how do you make something 10 times better? And once you start shifting your mindset into how do I build something how do I make something? How do I solve a problem that's not just a little bit better than what we currently do, but is like entirely different? That's an entirely different mindset.
And Chris, we're having TGIF here, TGIAF here today. Thank God it's almost Friday. And got talking to someone who is one of our UX developers in our research team, which is amazing for a start. And he told me about a project they're working on. And the hardest thing about working at Google now is you learn these cool things. And he's like, so I had this idea. My manager came back and said, it's not big enough. Make it 10x. Then come back and bring it to me. And then we'll see if we can do it. And what he brought back is massive. So yes, it's alive and well.
Thank you. And then the final piece of this is what we call collaboration. You know that word, where you try and build systems and tools and processes that allow people to connect, synergize together, share ideas, and cross-pollinate. If you ever come to a Google office, you'll notice there are lots of just little nooks and crannies around the building, places where you can sit. If you're going up the stairs, there's like a little place off the side of the stairs where if you pass someone on the stairs, you can step to the side and have a conversation with them. There's lots and lots of places physically in the building that encourage collaboration, because it's that idea about if you sit and have lunch with somebody else, for example, that's working on a different team, and you start talking, well, they might have a solution to something you're working on, or you might give them an idea for something that they're trying to solve. So it's all about collaboration. We build tools for collaborating. We're using Google Meet right now, and obviously it's a great tool for connecting people. But if you've used anything in Workspace, it's all about trying to work together, leaving comments in documents, pinging people over chat, that kind of thing, to minimize the friction of trying to work together. I think our tools have always been good at that. To be able to talk from anywhere, collaborate and share, and even things like forms. Once you do something, how do you get the feedback from that? By asking, measuring, and responding. So we try and build tools that make it really easy to collaborate. Steve mentioned G2G, Googler to Googler, where people will run courses for each other in all sorts of things. They might have talent in doing a specific thing, so they'll just run a course for anyone else. That would be a really easy thing to basically replicate in a school, by the way, time notwithstanding. And then the last thing, of course, is just the physical space, which I've already mentioned once about the whole curiosity piece. But just in terms of bringing people together, again, come and visit a Google office sometime and have a look around. You'll see that the physical environment engenders collaboration. It really does, about helping people work together and create that serendipity of sharing ideas. So there you go. So there's just some ideas about how we create a culture of innovation at Google. There are 4 how might we questions for you to consider. How might you take some of these things I just talked about and actually implement them in a school situation? Some of them might be really hard to do, but some of them might be really easy. You could probably come up with a system like G-Thanks to allow people to submit submissions for someone who's done a great job during the week, or run courses for each other once a term in things you're interested in. I don't know how you steal these ideas, but steal them, right? Because they apply everywhere. They're not just at Google. So that's my sort of challenge to you from what I've just said is, how could you adapt a googly idea? So I want you to choose one of those things that's of interest to you. Think about how you could adapt it to fit your school, and think about what benefits you'd hope to see. And maybe sometime later this year, you can come back to us and tell us, hey, something that I learned in that first session in February, I did, and here's the result. We'd love to hear about it. All right, Brett, I'm going to hand over to you, my friend. I think you've got, can you control the slides? Try and fix it. Brett, are you there?
You think we've been teaching with technology enough to know take it off mute before you start speaking, right? That might be of help.
That's right.
I don't know if I can control the slides or not. But,
no, that's okay. Just tell me when you want me to change slides.
Yeah. All good. Look, for those of you who don't know, Brett Salakis, as Betch said, teacher for a long time, 28 years, in fact, actually in classrooms, and I've been over with HP for a little bit about 2 years. Just wanted to congratulate and draw attention to Darren Macalino's haircut. Thank you, brother, for we've got the matching haircuts today. Love your work. Very, very attractive. Big fan of the shaved head. Look, let's jump straight into the next slide for me. I wanted to talk a little bit about how we can foster that spirit of innovation. And I've got here a little school that we've actually been working with last year. It's a Melbourne Archdiocese Catholic school, St. Peter's. I'll tell you the story in a little bit, but I just wondered, has anyone heard of the concept of the purple cow? If I said purple cow, has anyone read the book by Seth Godin, Purple Cow? He's a marketing expert. David, does that mean no or not a fan? The thumbs down. But the concept that Seth Godin talks about with Purple Cow is that if you're not heard of, very good. If you're driving down the countryside and you're seeing brown cow after brown cow after brown cow, or if you've got the dairy cows, maybe you're seeing some black and white cows, or if you're delicious and love the taste of a cow, maybe you're seeing some beautiful Black Angus cows after Black Angus after Black Angus after Black Angus. Donna, I'm glad to see you laughed at that. Suddenly, each cow pretty much looks the same. Cow after cow, same. If you drove past a purple cow, that cow would stand out. It would be remarkable. You would remember it. So Seth Godin talks about in marketing, how can you do something that is remarkable? How can you do something that is like a purple cow that sticks out and is memorable for the people you're talking to? There's a lesson there as educators. How can we make our lessons remarkable? How can we make our schools a purple cow school? How can we make our teaching a purple cow lesson so that it is memorable and remarkable for our students? And I guess when we're talking about innovation and the sort of stuff that Betcha's sort of saying there is, Narinder, is how can we help innovation? How can we help our schools foster the opportunity to be that purple cow? And that's the story I want to tell today here about St. Peter's. One of the things that we have done with St. Peter's in a collaboration with HB and Intel and Google is to be able to nurture them through a process called Reinvent the Classroom that is a way to enhance innovation and uplift a school's digital transformation. Betcha, if we jump into the next slide. We begin by, there's a couple of different ways we do things. We actually collect a little bit of data. We do a little bit of training and uplifting. This particular school is on its pathway to becoming a Google reference school. They've done all of their level 1 certification with their Google training, but then they've got a team of champions that are doing beyond their certification and really trying to make their lessons memorable, make their school a purple cow school. That they've got their how might we activity there that they've then shaped so that the team of teachers, this small sort of group of champions, has something that they can increase engagement and unlock sort of agency at their school. Next slide, Betch. So how are they able to do that? Well, they've created their own individual identity, a visible leadership. They call themselves actually the Keys for Digital Destiny, unlocking the potential for all. That's the name of this team of 6 or 7 teachers within the school. They're digital sort of champions. They've got this identity that they are the Keys for Digital Destiny. St. Peter's is the school down in Melbourne. Those people who have taught in Catholic schools or religious schools will know that St. Peter is St. Peter stands at the gates of the kingdom to heaven. He's got the keys there to unlock the gate and to get into heaven. So the key symbol there is quite important to the charism of that particular school. They've picked up on that school's on that school's charism, and even within the staff room, they've got this big board where they've got their Keys for Digital Destiny, and actually outline all of the goals that this team are trying to do to uplift within the school? You give someone some support, and this is very important, because if you give people a structure to and a green light and a pathway to innovate, they will. We as teachers sometimes are a little bit conservative. We wait for a green light to do something risky. We almost need to be given permission to be remarkable, permission to do something outside of the box. So you work with the school leader, you clearly and visibly endorse doing something innovative, doing something remarkable. You've got your plan, you've got your iconography, you've got your goals, then you can go about making change. Next slide, please, Betch.
That feels like it relates to that agency piece that I was talking about, where you don't wait for permission. You just kind of...
That's it. The synergies of what you were talking about and what we put together here, I think are really special. This team were fantastic. I've got to say, they actually ended up getting shirts made for themselves. They've got their Keys for Digital Destiny shirt, and they've done all this sort of stuff. But each different team, each different teacher had a goal, or each different year group had a goal that they were trying to bring around and change. Some were writing books, some were doing some immersive work. The year 6 did a very interesting task where the students actually used a whole bunch of their digital assets across the year to make a collection, like almost like a digital portfolio of all of their best aspects of their work, had that within one Google folder, got the link to that Google folder, made that open and shareable. And then they had like a beautiful old key, and they got an NFC, a little NFC key, a little NFC keychain, and had this nice key put on. And the kids actually went home with the key and this little NFC keychain that was the NFC, for those people who don't know, near field communications. You can link your NFC.
It's like how when you tap your card or your phone.
Like how when you tap your card to go into your Anytime Fitness gym and all that sort of stuff. You actually can have it linked. It's a little bit like a fancy version of a QR code, but you're actually saving sort of some information onto the keychain. Actually link then with this keychain the student's body of work. So they were actually able to take home. Mum and dad can get their smartphone, tap their smartphone to their nice little NFC keychain, and then bang, links there to their Google folder with all their body of work, so that they're all their work there. So this is a fantastic model, I guess, of giving some structure around how to be innovative, how to actually change culture and drive that innovative culture within a school. Be remarkable, have that purple cow. Exciting to see Jeremy. Funnily enough, I can see Jeremy and Steve Smith on the call. I was actually talking about you both just a few hours ago about a school in New Zealand that we're working with that is actually going on this same journey, and they're keen also to get that Google reference school status. So I have to keep you guys in the loop with some of that. So lots of energy there, and yeah, there's a nice little QR code there and a link. If anyone's on the call that's interested in finding the ways that we can all have that synergy together and come in and help drive that innovation, happy to answer any calls on that. So thanks so much, Betch. But it's wonderful when we all actually come together and do champion innovation across our industry.
Good on you. Thanks, Brad. Appreciate it.
No worries.
All right. Thanks. Well, let's back to our regular programming. We're going to just, some of you have used Bard, which is our artificial intelligence generative AI tool, where you can type in a prompt and it will generate a whole bunch of text for you. And you've probably heard of Duet AI, which is that generative AI engine basically inside Google Workspace. So you can generate things directly in a Google Doc or ask for a picture to be created inside a slide and so on. You may not have used it because it's not openly available right across the board just yet for everybody. But guess what we did last week? We renamed everything. So we decided Bard wasn't a good name. I don't know, I don't know why we changed our mind, but we no longer have Bard. Is now renamed. It is now called, drum roll, Gemini. So Gemini is the new name for our artificial intelligence generative AI tools. If you've been following along, you might have heard that the model, or the large language model that sits behind all of these things, it's gone through a number of iterations. It was called Lambda, it was called something else, it was called something else. And the latest version of our large language model is called Gemini. And so we just decided, look, it's less confusing if we just call it that. So if you hear the word Gemini now, what we're really talking about is Bard, or what used to be called Bard, which, is a generative AI tool. If you've been using Bard, you used to go to bard.google.com. Now, of course, you go to gemini.google.com, and it's all there. The other thing we did release last week in terms of Gemini was a new version of Gemini called Gemini Advanced, which uses our most advanced large language model behind the scenes. And when you go there, now here's what I would recommend you do if you want to play with this. If you use your Gmail account, which I'm assuming most of you probably have, so not your school Google account, but your personal Gmail account. Go with your personal Gmail account, go to gemini.google.com. When you get there, you'll see there's a little drop-down box in the top corner where you can switch between Gemini and Gemini Advanced. If you haven't activated already, Gemini Advanced will be sort of grayed out, and there'll be a button that says, I think it says free trial, right? So you can get a 2-month free trial of Gemini Advanced. You can use regular Gemini for free. You can use as much as you like. It's really good. You'll love it. But if you want to try the super advanced model, you'll need to get the advanced version enabled for you. And you get a 2-month trial. It is not free, the advanced one, and it is, I suppose, if I put my teacher hat on, I would say it's relatively expensive, right? But try it for free for 3 months. You try it, and if you want to unsubscribe before the 2 months is over, you can do that. If you decide it's great and you want to keep paying for it, that's your decision, but you're welcome to try it out. Okay, so that's the news on Gemini and what was Bard. Hopefully that all makes sense to everyone. The other thing I want to alert you to is a new page that exists on our education website called Advancing Education with AI. There's a code you can scan there, or you can type in that horrible long address. But it's a great site. I'm just going to jump over to it for a second, quickly show you what's there. If I go to this tab. So this is a site. There's a great video there. It goes for a couple of minutes, so I won't play it for you now, but I would encourage you to have a look at it. It's really interesting. And there's a whole bunch of things here about some information about AI, some of the stuff we're putting in our tools about AI. But down here, there's a really cool guide to AI in education, which is definitely worth a look if you're grappling with the AI question in that now. There's a Google for Education pilot program. There's a Teachers AI Guidance for Schools toolkit. So again, if you're doing AI stuff with your school or with your kids, there is some really good information in here, and obviously it's all sort of free and easy to access. So take a look at that. That's our AI in Education website. I want to show you something that is it's not Gemini, but we're doing a whole lot of research into this this space. I'm not going to play it. I'm not going to play the video. Go away. Okay. If you've not seen this is amazing. We are on the verge of developing tools now where you can type in a prompt and it generates text. You've probably all played with a tool that does that, right? You probably played with the one where you type in some text and it makes a picture for you. Well, we've got this great tool that we just announced recently called Lumiere, which not publicly available yet, I don't believe, but it's worth a look. You type in something and it generates video for you, right? This is phenomenal. I'm going to play you this little video just to give you a snapshot into what Lumiere is all about. Hear the audio?
Not yet, Betch.
Not getting audio? Oh, hang on a second. Let me figure out why that would be.
You're still on the AI tab as well.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Of course I am. Duh.
There you go.
Thank you. Right. I'll just rewind that. Yeah. Hopefully you get the audio now.
Yes.
So just remember, all these little video clips you're looking at here were all generated by typing in a description, and it makes the video. Now this is cool, you can give it a reference image and it will generate video in the style of that reference image. This blows my mind. Check this out. You get a still image, select a bit of the image, and it will animate that bit of the image. Or this next bit, this girl that's walking along in the dress, you select the dress and say, make it a stripy strapless dress, and it swaps the clothing.
That bear dances like you, Chris.
Dances better than me. So there you go. There's a little snapshot of some of the stuff we're doing behind the scenes at Google Research. We are on the verge of some phenomenal technologies that are coming down the pipe thanks to this AI revolution we're all in. And I don't know if you think that's as amazing as I think it is, but I'm really impressed with that.
Hey Chris, that the one with the dress changes, that there was some early work done on that about 6 months ago on online shopping, so you could effectively upload a picture of yourself and see how you look in different outfits. So it's like a virtual dressing room. So
Wow.
you know, when you order things from Wish or the other one, they turn up and they're not quite right. The idea here is that when you go onto an online shopping site, you can actually put the clothing on yourself and see what it looks like on my body, not that person in the picture's body, which is a little bit different than mine and has bumps in different places than mine does. So it's kind of thinking that's some cool stuff, but how can we use that in the real world? And so that's kind of one of the real world uses of it.
Yeah, very cool. Thanks, Steve. All right, let's just have a quick run through of some of the new stuff that's come to Google since we last spoke in November. There's some really neat stuff there. I've just listed them out, but I will take you through them one by one. So the first thing, this landed last week, I think it landed. I used to work in a school where every year the history teacher would get these kids to do a like history presentation, and he'd always like make some slides and then narrate the slides. Right, and he'd mark the narration of the slides like giving a talk. We now have this feature inside Google Slides. I'm just going to come out of here for a second and show you. It is right here. Can you see that button in the top corner that I'm pointing to? It says record. When you click that record button, you can record a new video, and it will open up this page that looks like that. Allow both my microphones. There you go. And it brings you to this page, and you hit the big record button and you start talking, and it records you. So it's recording the slide presentation and it's recording your camera if you want to enable your camera. There's some little buttons down in the corner here where you can change the position of the camera, so you can move yourself to any of the four corners, or you can put yourself in the middle if you really want to. Okay, so you can move yourself around, and you can also change the size. So if you'd like to be bigger, you can expand that as well. So you set that up. It's all dynamic, so you can change those settings while you're recording. So you could be big in the beginning and then make yourself small for the rest of the talk, whatever you want to do. And it just records it. As soon as you hit the stop button at the end, it just sends it straight to Google Drive and gives you the link. It's a super, super easy way. I can see it's being used a lot in schools. Thanks, Tracy. Yeah, I think it's awesome too.
A really nice use, Chris. I mean, I talk quite a bit about a lot of our tools are enabling those quiet kids. You know, the ones that obviously weren't me and Chris in class. But something like this, if you ask a kid to stand up and give a presentation and go through slides, they're never going to do it, right? They'll be mysteriously sick every time they go to do it. If they can do it in private in front of their screen, it's a really nice way to allow them to take part in that activity.
Not only that, but the whole learning by repetition thing. The video that you might present to your teacher at the end might be the 4th or 5th or 6th or 7th take you've had it doing that. Whereas if you're trying to present live in the classroom, it's the first take. And as we know, the first take always sucks, right? So it's much better if you can iterate. The second thing that is...
Chris, there was a question there from Olga about if
sorry.
it's an extension. No, it's not an extension. It'll be built into slides. So it will appear
Correct.
at some point in the slide deck.
Correct. If you don't see it right now, Olga, it is rolling out. We only just sort of released it last week. It depends on whether you're on the early release or the rapid release version of Workspace. And whenever we roll out a new feature, it doesn't appear for everybody instantly. It usually takes a few days, even up to a couple of weeks, to roll out for everybody. But keep your eye on it. It will be there shortly because it has been announced. The other cool thing that's in Google Slides, and this is actually a Labs feature. So this is not standard in Slides yet. It's a Labs feature, so you can enable it to play with it. But it's removing background images in Slides. In my opinion, this is something Slides should have been able to do a long time ago. So I'm really glad it can do it now. Got a couple of examples here for you. So if I click on this picture here, for example, you can see I've got this little button up the top here that says remove background. If I click on that button, it will just intelligently, using AI, remove the background from that image and makes it all transparent. That was an easy one because it was a plain background. So I've got a more challenging example here. So if I go to that one and I can go remove background, and even with that sort of complex background, it does a reasonably good job of removing the background from that vase picture. The third thing I want to show you in here is this is a placeholder in Google Slides. This has been around for a long time. It's not a new thing, but I've put a placeholder in Slides that I can click on this and actually add a picture. And I just want to show you, we actually haven't even renamed internally Duet AI to Gemini just yet, but it's coming. You probably recognize most of these where you can insert an image into Slides, but this is the new thing if you were using Gemini for Workspace, or what used to be called Duet AI. You can now come in here and say, Gemini, let's describe a vase of flowers on a table, right? And I'll hit let's do it in the style of...
Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk flowers would be fun.
Cyberpunk flowers. All right, cool.
My favorite one.
There you go. So I'll hit that create button, and now this is using generative AI to take my text description and generate a picture. So that'll just take a few seconds to generate that, and I can say, okay, I really kind of like that one there, and it just drops it in. So that's an image that wasn't found on the internet. It wasn't like a Google image search. It was literally created on the fly. And as you probably saw, well, I'll close it now, but you probably saw there was a whole bunch of others as well. So that's the generative AI stuff. I'm going to try. I haven't tried on this one, but I'm going to see if I can remove the background on the generative AI image. I'll see what it does. And boom. So yeah, it's a bit tricky, that one, because it's got a glass vase and it's seeing through the glass vase, but the rest of the flowers is actually done a pretty good job on it. Anyway, so that's the remove background feature that is in Labs at the moment, but will be coming to Slides. I just thought I'd tell you about it. Something else that's new is shareable class templates in Classroom. So if I just go into Classroom, and I'm actually in my Google account here, not my demo account. So
the nice thing about this one is that you know, back in the old days of 2023, you know, you had to have the reference classroom that everyone joined, and you have your class in there, and then you make a copy of that class for your other class. And it was that thing where you had to be in a class to make a copy of a class, right? So this one, we got some feedback that was a bit of a faff, and not everyone wanted to join one class for the whole school. So what Chris is going to show you here is a way now that you can duplicate. If you have a reference class, if you're the literacy expert at school, you can create a class of things and share it across all your teachers. Or you're the maths expert. Being
actually, I don't know if it's turned on for here, Steve, because normally I don't know if it's turned on for this account, because normally there's a little button just up in the top corner here.
Oh yeah.
Move this. Yeah, so it's not enabled here yet. So I'll just go back to the GIF, and you can see in the GIF what it looks like. So sorry, I'll switch back to that tab. Oops. What do I do then?
Yep, you're good. So that's showing the GIF there where you can share your classwork. So go back. Slide.
Yeah, so you can see what it'll generate a link to the class, and then you can share that class. So if a teacher in your school has created a Google Classroom that is would be useful to other teachers, you can let this GIF go back to the beginning again. You see that share classwork button there? You click that, it generates a link to the classroom. You copy the link and then you send that link out. You email it to someone or put it on your intranet or however you want to share that out. And then whoever clicks on that link can then make a copy of that class. It is within domain, of course, like most things in classrooms. So it will only work within your school domain. So whether that's within your individual school, if you're an independent school, or within your entire school system, if you're part of a department. So yeah, great way, saves a lot of time. You can build a classroom once and just share it out. Here's another thing that's in Google Classroom. We have talked about this in the past, but it is now becoming generally available, and that is Read Along inside Google Classroom. So Read Along, if you recall, was an AI tool for helping students with their literacy. You can read they can read a story, and a little AI helper will help them with any words they stumble on. You've probably seen that before. That's been around for a while. Here's the big difference now. If I go into my classroom here, you see where I create a new assignment. I'm sorry, I'll share that tab instead. So I'm creating a new assignment here inside Google Classroom, and you'll notice there is a button here called Read Along. If you don't see it yet, again, you will shortly, or it needs to be turned on for your domain. So if you don't see it, you might want to just check with someone in your system to make sure it's turned on for your system. You'll see this button called Read Along. Here's the cool thing that it does. Now, again, this is a demo domain, so it's not ideal for trying to show you this, but you'll get the idea. I click that button, and what it does is it adds a Read Along resource into Classroom. Now, there are kind of, as that's loading there, it's kind of a three-step process. So the first step is you assign a story to the students, and you can assign the story using either a grade level or a Lexile. So if you know what the student's Lexile reading level is, you can assign it to that specific reading level or their grade. When the student reads the story, so they'll use Read Along the way you've probably seen it used before. They'll read the story. The little helper girl in the corner, Dia, she will jump in and help when needed. She'll help with pronunciation. She'll help if the student gets stuck on a word. She'll give stars for achievement, all of that sort of stuff. But then at the end of reading the story, you get this reading data back, right? Specifically on that story. It'll tell you what the accuracy level, the comprehension level, the speed, everything about the way that student was reading, and it'll give you all of that data. It will highlight and flag all the words that the student stumbled over. I don't know how else you get this data on such an easy, simple level, right? And then once the whole class has read books, you actually get an overriding summary at the end of the progress levels for each individual student. You'll get a summary for the class. If there's any sort of common words that all the class was stumbling over, it'll give you that. It'll give you a general overview of the class, but then it'll give you specific data on each particular student, the number of words per minute, the correct words per minute, how many words, how accurate they were, how fast it took them to read, give you all of that data, and then individual words for each student that they stumbled over. So that's the process.
And Chris, for our New Zealand teachers, if we look at that, it's a really nice way of managing the new requirements of lots and lots of reading in a really different way with some really nice individualized feedback as well. So little bonus there for us over this side of the ditch.
Yeah, and I'll get flagged like everything we try and do here at Google. This is the way this works right now is the worst it will ever be, right? It's pretty good right now, but it gets better and better and better. We just keep iterating over and over. I'm just going to click the start button and you'll see, again, as a teacher, remember I'm inside Classroom. This is what I'm seeing. So let's say I'm teaching a Year 3 class. So it's now going to give me a whole bunch of stories that might be suitable for a Year 3 class. And again, as a teacher, I'm choosing what I want the kids to read. So here's a great thing on turtles. So maybe I'd like them to read that. So I assign that book to that class. Just like in everything else in Google Classroom, I can assign specific things to specific students. We have announced it, but it's not available yet. Finally, groups inside Google Classrooms, where you'll be able to create pre-designated groups. So you'll be able to say, I want my red kids to have this book, my blue kids to have this book or whatever, and you can send books to individual groups or individual students. You can preview the book here, so you can go through and sort of see what that book is about. And if you're happy with it, or you can try it as a student by clicking on the Try Student View, and you'll see what it's like from the student's perspective. And if you're happy with everything, you say attach this story, and it will take that book and attach that to the Google Classroom then as an assignment. So the student reads the book, and at the end, they just hit the submit button to send it back in, and you get all that reading data on all those kids. It is, I think, like, Read Along was great just as a standalone product, but putting it in a classroom like this is a total game changer, I think. So I'd be very interested to hear some of your stories as you start to use this in your classrooms. Make sense?
And just to flag in, Chris, as you said, it may not be on for your domain because it is an additional service, which means you've got to tick the little box and accept the additional service, because it does collect a little bit of student information like name, login, that sort of stuff. So if you don't see it in your domain, you will need to have a conversation with your admin about switching it on.
Yeah. And of course, on the large level, New South Wales Department, Victoria Department, and so on, Steve in New Zealand, we are trying to have those conversations with those departments on your behalf, so it gets switched on. The other thing that's available and this is not new, you probably heard of this before, but it's now generally available. It was in beta before, it was in early testing before, but now it's available to anyone. It's interactive questions inside Google Classroom. And again, if I just flip back over to Classroom for a sec, you can see that I have the option down here in where it says YouTube. If I click on YouTube, I can go in here and I can select a YouTube video by just pasting cats. Everyone loves cat videos on YouTube, right? So I can go in here and get a cat video or any video, add it, and then when I click this Add Questions button, I can go through and add questions at any point in the video. So you can play a bit of the video, insert a question. Kid gets a question right, the video moves on, and so on. Right? So that was in beta, but it's now generally available. So you should, if you are not seeing it already, you should start to see it very soon.
And another nice point about that, Chris, is it will work if YouTube is switched off for the students as well. So I know a lot of primary schools have YouTube switched off. If you assign something via Classroom, it will allow that to be played.
Yeah, awesome. The other thing about that, and this is, I'm not speaking out of turn here because we haven't announced this, but it's still coming. There will be the ability for you to use AI to automatically insert questions into a video. So rather than you necessarily having to stop and start the video and put all those questions in, the AI will look at the video and it will intelligently come up with some questions to sprinkle through the video for you. Obviously, you can override them if you want, but that's what it will do. All right. This is a nice one for anyone who has a lot of Google Forms. If you've used Google Forms to create quizzes, you notice that we introduced a thing last year called practice sets, which is kind of almost like quizzes inside Classroom. And a lot of people said, what's the point of having quizzes in forms and practice sets? They're kind of the same thing, aren't they? Well, they're not. There's some subtle differences, but we now have the ability for you to take a Google form and import it directly into practice sets as a quiz. So if you've already created the resources in forms, again, let me just go back over to Classroom and I'll quickly show you.
Yeah, and this is one of those questions, Chris, I know that we got, especially around EduTech last year when we were looking at this, people saying, but how can I get my forms? I've got years and years of great interactive quizzes on forms into practice sets. At that time, kind of broke our hearts to say, so, well, sorry, you can't. You got to copy and paste everything. So now we'll bring them in.
Yeah. You might have noticed that your Google Classroom used to have a little tab on the side here that said practice sets. That's been renamed now. It says resources, and both practice sets and the YouTube interactive videos will all be found in that one section. Okay, we just generally call them resources now. So you'll find both of them there. There's another exciting new thing coming to this as well. We've announced it, but it's not public yet. And that is the ability for you to create an entire lesson plan using generative AI. So you'll be able to come in here and say, I'm doing a lesson on volcanoes for year 5, and boom, it'll just generate that lesson plan directly in Classroom for you. That's coming. We announced that at BET in January. So keep your eye out for that one. But if you come in here now, you'll notice if you make a new practice set, that when you try and create that practice set now, there is an option. Come on.
Come on, show us some more.
Up in, I think is it here?
Below the question there.
below the question. Yeah, sorry, there. So there's an import button at the bottom there now. So if you say import, you have now the option to search for Google Forms. And if I got any here, what have I got here? So if I pick that one, for example, and say import, it's going to import the questions from their Google form into the practice set as that's just kind of a survey question, right? So not very interesting, but you get the idea, right? So you can have a form that you've pre-made, imported in, now becomes a practice set. So it gives you a bit more choice. Cool. This is also, I think, a nice new feature. You can now, and again, it requires a little bit of administrator setup, but you can now control who can respond to a Google form. You might recall when the Google form setup, there was a switch where you could say, only people in my domain can fill this in, or otherwise you turn that off and now everybody can fill it in. You'll have the ability now, this is currently in beta, but again, coming soon, where you can specify who is allowed to fill in the form, including using a group. So most schools, for example, have a group for all the teachers. So if you wanted to do like a teacher-only survey, you could make that form available only to the teacher group, so the kids can't see it. So it's going to give you a lot more control over how you share your forms and who gets access to fill them out. This is a cool one. I think this is great. Placeholders, smart chips in Google Docs. And I've got an example here I can show you. So let's say you're creating a form. Switch to this tab. And you want to sort of help pre-fill some of this information. So now, if I go up to the insert menu and I go to smart chips, there's an option down the bottom that says placeholder chips, right? So you've got all these smart chips, and we've talked at length about smart chips all last year. But now these placeholder chips, I can say, okay, I'm going to insert a date chip, right? And it goes in there. Let me just do this. I'm going to go in here and go insert smart chips, placeholders. Let's do a place. For agenda, let's get a document for that. So I'm going to go insert smart chips, placeholders, file. The lead is a person, so I'm going to go insert smart chips, placeholders, person, and the meeting might be a meeting in my calendar, so I can go insert smart chips, placeholder chips, and calendar event. Right, so I'm inserting those things. Now, here's the cool thing, that when someone comes to fill out this form, you can click on date and a date picker pops up. So I can go, yeah, I want that date. Great. Well, what's the location? So you click on the location chip and a search comes up. And this is Google Sydney, right? And I can come in here and I can choose that and it puts that in. If there's a particular file, learn with Google. Sorry, with Google. No results found. What? That's crazy talk. I'm trying to rush, but you get the idea. Or you can search for a specific person. So I can put, say, Steve in there. If there's a particular calendar event, I can do that. Learn with Google. There you go. So I can put that in. So you can basically, they become searchable little chips that you can pre-populate into a document. And where I think they get really smart, there's a couple of things. You could, if this was something you reused over and over again, you can turn it into a building block, which we've kind of talked about previously, by right-clicking on it and saying save as a custom building block, right? And once you save it as a custom building block, it becomes reusable. So if I wanted to come in here and say insert building blocks from my custom building blocks, here's the one I set up earlier, Smart Chip Demo. If I click that, boom, it just drops it in for me. Right, because I've saved that whole block as a little mini template, if you like. So I think there's a lot of scope for saving a lot of time here. And I love the fact that, you know, if you click on that date module, or if you click on this map module, now it's got something attached to it, I can go, okay, there's Google Sydney, great, open the preview. And it's going to open in the panel on the side of the document there and sort of zoom me into that location. So we're tying together a lot of these tools so they actually all play together right across the, you know, from A to B. Hopefully you find that interesting.
I think that really nice thing about making them a building block as well is awesome, because, you know, you talk about if you have things you use over and over again as a template, drop them into a doc.
Yeah, yeah. This is not live for me yet, so I can't demonstrate it for you, but it is, again, rolling out. So it's not, I don't even have it right now. But in Google Meet, right now you are probably looking at my slides plus a little panel of little people on the side, right? What I will be able to do with this is I'll be able to hover over one of you. I'm pretty sure this is not working just yet. No, it's not happening. I can, if you hover over anyone's picture, so try it with yourself, hover over your own picture and you'll see three little icons appear. One of them is like a push pin. And if you click that push pin, it will make your window big as well. So you get the presentation, you're big and everyone else is little. So what this does is the host of the meeting will be able to pin someone for everybody. So if you are sort of the teacher giving a remote lesson, for example, or a presenter is doing like coming into your classroom, you can make that big for everybody, right? They don't have to do it themselves. So I think that's just a small thing, but a nice feature. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is all we have for you today. I'm trying to stay on time and I almost did it. Can I kindly ask you to just take a moment? We have simplified the feedback form. We've tried to just really streamline it. So there's only a couple of questions in there. If you could really kindly just either go to bit.ly/LWG_FB feedback or scan the QR code. Thanks, Jeremy. That would be awesome if you could just take a moment to do that. For those that fill in the feedback, we will do a little draw. We'll leave it open a little longer, probably till tomorrow. Steve, do you reckon?
Yeah, we'll leave it open till this time tomorrow, and then we'll do a
little draw from someone, and we'll pick a name at random and send you out a prize. We might have to contact you to get an address to send it to, but that's okay. But thank you again.
Hey, yeah, I was just, while everyone's filling that out, and Jeremy just left, unfortunately, but Jeremy just posted, I think, probably on LinkedIn and probably on Twitter or X or Z or whatever it's called now, about the fact that the cast button has moved in Chrome. It used to be up on the top right, but it has moved now. You've got to go to share and then down to cast. So it's a couple of clicks. So if you follow Jeremy on any of his socials or on the Instagrams, he did post something about that today. It's a nice little tip. Some people have freaked out and gone, where's the cast button gone in Chrome? It's still there. You just got to find it.
Yeah, we like moving the furniture around. All right, so everyone got that link? Okay, so just to wrap up then, don't forget that we actually record all of these and we make them available afterwards on demand. We do have them on a YouTube channel at the moment that marketing might make us move to a different place, but we'll deal with that and we'll let you know if there's a new location. Right now, that's where they are. So bit.ly/LWG_rewatch if you'd like to rewatch anything. And of course, as usual, if you would like a certificate for attending today, if you collect such things, bit.ly/GFE certificate. If you fill in that form, it will generate one for you and send it straight back. So that's that. I will stop the recording, but we'll be hanging around for a few minutes if anyone has any questions and would like to hang out. Recording is off. Thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you.